Hello, I'm Rob Price. This season, we're exploring Agentic AI from the perspectives of those driving its evolution. Welcome to Futurise.
Hello, Rob. Thanks for having me. I'm Suzanne EL-Moursi, co-founder and CEO of Brightive, headquartered here in downtown Chicago in the United States. And we are excited about all the opportunities of the broken data workflow and the data journey that everybody in any company size or organization deals with. We feel very passionate that it's broken. We're out to fix it end to end with our agentic AI approach for the entire life cycle of data.
And Suzanne, it's great to have you on the podcast. Been looking forward to the conversation. What made you start that? I mean, did you start thinking, hey, I've got this great idea about how I can use agents and apply them to data? Or was it the problem that you were trying to fix that led the solution?
It's the problem. I'm just coming off of in the last hour, coming into this podcast, connecting with one of our longtime customers, and the customer is the CIO of a very prominent and known university here in the United States. And they've been a customer for 4 years. So we've been solving the problem, the problem regardless of AI, the problem of data sharing, data collaboration, bringing data together. And nobody's immune from the challenges of that goal, which is the problem in itself. Is your data is great, my data is great, together we're powerful, and we work in the same organization, but we are unable to smoothly and seamlessly bring data sets together in a way that makes it usable, first of all, that makes it kind of easy to create the data pipelines that you can do all kinds of dashboards. Like, we live in the world where all this is feeding a dashboard or some kind of reporting. And so the customer that I was just speaking with, longtime customer of Brightive, that essentially is trying to solve the fluidity and the velocity of how we can bring data sets together. And when you think about a university, it is a lot of data sets about students, alumni, donors, teacher, like professors. He has so much data. They have so much data, and they're really under a whole lot in a regulated industry. So every organization in this sector is driving new insights, needs to get to new insights about the wellness of the individual, of the student, mentally and academically, the retention, attainment, just a lot of what education, like, you're supposed to get in and get out and really be a whole. And there's so many points of measurement that they have to do. And so when we step back, he's having a hard time delivering the reports and the insight to all the decision makers at the executive level that are running this institution. And this is every university, if we're talking about higher education. But this is representative of every organization, regardless if you're in higher ed, profit or nonprofit. The idea that I know the data has the answers and I can't get to the answer easily. Often I'm moving data sets about 11 to 15 times from different platforms that are all fragmented and not connected, so I can complete the picture of whatever it is that I'm trying to complete, so I can answer the question. That's the problem we set out to solve well before Agentic.
And that's really interesting because, I mean, most organizations, as you say, will have ever more data all over the place. And getting the intelligence out of that data is a long-term challenge. I love the fact that the examples that you've given in that regulated space are full of personal data as well. So that's sensitive data. So
100%.
so that's going to be things that actually people might be fearful of in the context of AI or models. But of course, as you said, you started pre-models. So you were connecting to these things and helping people solve before the models arrived. And I'm guessing, therefore, what you've found is that through the use of agents and models, you're able to superpower or accelerate the things that you were doing anyway to improve. But how have you found that it improves? What's that journey look like?
Yeah, this is a great question. We were solving, and we've been obsessed with the data problem well before AI. And keep in mind, AI has been around since the 60s. We had conviction that we can accelerate the solution to trying to bring data sets together. And by the way, in a governed environment, look through the data quality and its cleanliness. All of this right now that I'm describing is happening by people, which means it's time, it's expensive, right? And let's remember that the scarcity of data engineering and data analysts in general, like you also have a skills shortage in this space. And the data, to your point about the data volumes, they continue to accelerate. 90% of the world's data was actually only produced in the last 2 years because of the era that we're in, the AI era. So take all of that and plus many more data points or many more points or accolades I can give you. But the heart of the problem is that the volume of data work to workforce that is skilled to actually process that work, right? The data work is an upside down, ratio. You're compounding the data from all different sources that is highly has high PII, right? And the more that we are touching data that is sensitive, the longer this process gets delayed if people are only touching it. So when we step back and think, how can we accelerate, right? The 80% of the grunt work of data. That's what you and I are describing here. 80% of the data work is grunt work. Things like figuring out where the PII is, masking it, creating the policies that govern on the platform and police, your social security number and birth date would never come together, right? This is all to breed trust. Being able to find out, my last name, EL-Moursi, has a hyphen. In one system, it has it. In another system, it does not, right? If my, university institution or the credit card companies and banking that are trying to create a picture of Suzanne, a whole picture, her data is fragmented, her credit card bills versus maybe her retirement plans, right? Because my last name is dirty. It's not spelled well. And so all of this is to say, the more we understand and are reminded by what makes data so difficult, the more you're starting to understand the workflow. And the workflow is what we've always been out to fix, right? Agentically or not. We started the company, Brightive 1.0 was really around being able to reduce the on-ramp of bringing data sets together in a governed place, which is why we earned, all our initial customers like the CIO that I mentioned, because we're helping them bring disparate data. He has over 300 data sets in different cloud environments and some on-prem that he's bringing together just to be able to feed a BI tool, which, by the way, still has an issue of being always accurate. And as we were building this kind of before ChatGPT landed on your cell phone, the ability for us to bring together data in one place that is neutral, which is just Brightive Switzerland, if you will, apply governance policies, apply all of the ingestion, workflows, all of this, and automating it for them. We started to see the next problem that our early customers had was talent. And so when we started to take a look at how do you solve the talent problem, what are we really solving? Well, it's the tasks that data engineers have to do to fulfill the 80% of the grunt work. That's when we started to make the connection between agentic workforce to help relieve the pressure, right? The bottleneck of human workforce. And it doesn't, our approach to BrightAgent and Agentic as a whole, it's not just our reliance on the LLM, but the brain of BrightAgent. BrightAgent is your super data companion that's running the end-to-end workflow. So it's not just steps of the workflow, but the whole workflow. The brain of BrightAgent is not just reliant on the LLMs. It's not a wrapper on LLM. And also, we don't just use one. We use between 4 to 5 different LLMs to feed the different data tasks because those are complex. It's the knowledge graph that gets created off of the data. It's an internal knowledge graph that then actually builds its brain. And the combination of the right LLM for the complex data task like cleansing or governing or schema mapping or schema creation or metadata, these are complex tasks done by people, and you're feeding BrightAgent the intelligence off of that, both from the LLM and its internal brain, the knowledge graph. That's how we're driving the transformation of moving from all of it being human-led to being human and agentic-led.
It's almost like you knew I was going to ask you how you kind of considered and built an agent in advance. But one of the things I noticed was that you'd got, I don't know, 600 different integrations to different data technologies. And I guess you've also answered that in that, well, that was your business. You had to connect through APIs into those different data technologies because that's what the organizations you were working with needed. And then the piece that you've added into that is in your language is that agentic brain, which is okay, if I kind of now integrate a knowledge graph with a large language model, different large language models, and the tool accesses that you've got something that is beginning to do that human workflow that would have been done, but they could have never done it fast enough or the capability enough, etc.
That's
So,
it.
so it comes back to that's the acceleration you're providing.
That's it. I mean, you have to stop back and think there's two optimizations here with our solution. And, investor conversations are the best because they're like, oh, it's another data tool. And it's like, oh, no, it's not. Let me tell you why. This is a solution to a very complicated workflow. And unless you go deep to understand why the data workflow is one of the most complex workflows on planet Earth, very few are as complicated as data work. I mean, it is a truth. And I'd love to be challenged on that. Unless you understand the level of the fragmentation that lies in this workflow. I mean, you talk about just the very front end of it, the 600 plus connectors, because that's our clients or our customers' business. I mean, that's the problem they're bringing to us, right? Just today, we're looking at NetSuite and just NetSuite 1 and NetSuite 2. And it's because the way, there's one component of a data set for a prospective client that is in our trial right now, trying to figure out, I can't get that both in one connector. I have to have two from the same company. That's it. That's being imposed on them. Therefore, it is imposed in the workflow. Therefore, we solve for that. And it just continues. Like these age-old issues from 3 decades, when you think about before that even, I mean, since the rise of the internet in the mid-90s, like this problem has continued to get complicated for over 4 decades, really, where as we adopted more and as businesses adopted more and more software, right, and more tools, all of this to house data or bring parts of it and all the tooling to bring it together, this problem slowly has been, the problem around the complexity of the workforce has just slowly been getting larger and more complicated as we go. So we're not just another tool in the same problem suite or pool. We are trying to create a whole seamlessness that goes end to end in data work from the ingestion to the insights. Fundamentally, to do that, you have to kind of bring yourself down to say, are we a solution or are we a tool? And to how far is the solution going to go? Which is the approach that we have been taking and thinking about agentically, how much relief can we actually provide when you take a solution approach versus just a tool, right? That's what is the moat for us. The moat for us comes around us looking at the problem very differently than just another tool that's trying to automate only one piece.
Now, imagine from the other conversations that I had on the podcast and the work that we've been doing in a similar space, not all data is equal. And especially if you're thinking about optimizing performance of agents and accelerating the work that they can do to get the right answer, whatever the right answer means, I hasten to add, then part of that is also being quite selective around the data that you use within the knowledge graph or how you extract value out of that enormity of kind of information out. In short, you have to get your head around what that data really means. Is that your point? Is kind of it's not just about the technology, it's actually being able to extract the value and the things that matter from that underlying data to actually kind of deliver some business value to the people who need it at the point of need.
Absolutely. It's the context. It's what does that mean? What's the story that's in the data? Our value proposition to our customers is that BrightAgent doesn't give you the obvious right answer. I mean, all AI, that's just so basic. Like if it's not giving you that, any AI is no good. But we are giving you the most insightful answer because we are looking for inherent signals in the data, in the story of the data that the human eye isn't seeing. And it can see it, but that's many weeks in the future because if a human being is doing it, you got to work with the data at a level to really mine it. So our value proposition is that we want to get you to the most insightful answers to your questions faster because we've created an agentic solution that is not a wrapper on an LLM. BrightAgent is powered by a team of agentic data agents, retrieval agent, visualization agent, the governance agent, the ingestion agent. It is not BrightAgent is just not a singular one. It's actually the maestro to the orchestra. that is working through your data workflow from the tools, the warehousing, the ingestion, and the data itself to understand what's there. And you're engaging as the user with BrightAgent in conversational language, asking it a question. It is thinking through, how am I going to achieve the most insightful answer for Rob? And I'm going to start delegating the tasks. It starts delegating the tasks to the different, musicians here, the different engineers who are doing the agentic work of human beings in a way to surface parts of the picture to give you the right insightful answer. And that is not a tool. That is a solution to a problem, which is human beings, struggle and need more time and capacity to be able to do all of that every single time a business request comes in for a question. And as the CIO that I was just speaking with, he said, that's the way work happens in the real world. We deliver the report to whichever business user is asking us in whichever part of the organization, and then that just triggers another 6 questions, and then they come back, right? The idea that, okay, the time it takes and the complexity of the work to be able to mine the data differently to answer the next question that comes through. Can we close the gap, right? And giving BrightAgent, that is your data companion that's going to do this nonstop 24 hours a day at any point in the workflow.
So because of the things that you've said, I've got to ask a very unfair question because I want to jump forward a bit. We've operated in a world the last 10 years, certainly, where we're told that we need to aggregate data into data lakes or data warehouses or data repositories that bring it all together because we can then get insights from it. And over the last year or so, I've increasingly had a view that says maybe that's wrong now, because if we can connect into all of those remote data sets with those remote data technologies using an agentic capability, well, surely I can do that dynamically at point of need rather than have to kind of undergo big data lake, data warehouse transformation programs. So my question is, am I mad, or is there a bit of potential in terms of how that could play out, assuming we see the continued power of what agents can do in an enterprise business?
You're not mad at all. I actually don't think you're mad at all. I think that is very likely. I mean, it's 2.0 going to 5.0 in a way, because also the agentic evolution and how good it's getting at doing all of this. I mean, we're consistently as humanity just blown away, right? The way it's reasoning, the way it's learning, the way it's able to just, as you think about AGI and where we're going and how fast it's moving. So I don't believe it's highly unlikely. I mean, right now, coming out of the modern data stack era, the warehouse has become that center, most important point of truth, right? It's all kind of living there. And that is the old day, if we're ever going to label that. And we believe that that's still very powerful today to feed the first wave. And I don't even know that it's first, maybe it's 10th, but just first wave of teaching, right? And building the agentic layer around it. But I do think you're right. I mean, there's a point where you don't need that at all, because it's just going to go straight to the sources. It can, and right? Can we engineer it to go straight from in the sources and be able to work? But what it's going to find, it's still really ugly, dirty data. So now we have to think about the new agentic capabilities for the agentic solutions to actually tackle what makes data hard that human beings have been struggling with, which is data quality. Just kind of the integrity of this data, the usability of this data. The warehouse didn't necessarily, just because it's here, solve for all that. It kind of just like took it in, and then there's a lot of tooling that happened on the warehouse kind of environment to be able to cleanse this. What do you want out of all of it is clean data pipelines. Can we get to clean data pipelines faster with less tooling and less layers in the data stack? And if yes, can agentic solutions get us there? I think so.
That brilliantly brings us on to the big question in terms of who are the future users, because in a sense, I mean, some of the things that you're talking about are the prevail of the data engineers. They are the people who would do that work. You might argue that there's never enough of them, and the capability isn't always there in those organizations that need to do that work. But who are the beneficiaries? Is it the who in businesses that you work with looks at this with fascination and desire because it solves their problem? I'm guessing there's also some people that look at it in horror.
Yeah, we have to look at it in horror. It's human nature. We're wired to fear. We're wired to fear change. We're wired to fear risk. we're wired to underestimate the opportunity and completely overblow and overestimate the risks. This isn't human nature. We're not going to solve that. And it's great for us to understand this, that is our initial reaction is going to come from that point of view. The answer to your question, it's the 97%. The 97%. 97% of what? Consistently, when you look at the data that's coming out, it's showing us from a STEM engineering point of view, in any organization, the median percentage of skilled data workers, that profession, right? Data engineers and data scientists, the whole field, hovers no more than 3%. It actually struggles even to get to 2%. So 2% of a company's full-time staff is trained to work through the problems that we're talking about. That leaves 97 to 98% completely waiting, right? To get a JIRA ticket or a capacity, waiting on capacity to be able to work with data. That 97% are data users, data consumers. That's the business. That's every function in the business. We're working with a wound care company. Who doesn't know gauze? It's in every hospital and clinic. You were talking about very traditional industry. They're sitting on mountains of data from all over. I mean, they're right here in the United States. They pipe all this wound care product, and they only have one data analyst and a half, because they just got another one part-time, to be able to help them to, and they're now international as well, just bring in so much of the data around, is it nursing homes? Is it wound care centers? Is it hospitals, is it clinics? Like, really, where is their growth going to be coming from? And so the business is looking to answer questions for growth and optimization and scale. And they have a 1.5 person, right? And the CIO is talking to us about, when he looks at his team makeup, how do we get more people to help us help the business figure out the answers to where they need to be going? So it's that 98%, which we at Brightive are the most excited about. So we're solving the data problem and its complexity because of the opportunity to have self-servicing 98%. That 98% is in every organization, regardless of size and regardless of scale.
It's removing the dependency, it's the blockage. It's making it easy to get to the point of, how do I make the decision that I need to do to service whatever the kind of business needs at that particular point in time.
And every prospective technology leader that is in our queue is not adopting this so that they can turn around and lay off who they have. No, they actually want to relieve the pressure from that smaller team and have a self-servicing organization, but they need to be the ones to make this buy, give the stamp of approval. Agentic data staff and data workforce is just as good, and be able to really champion this. And that's what we're seeing about when we're here, the transformation of work and, the human labor force working alongside agentic workforce. How does that happen? It needs people that are seeing that to be possible and understand the impact it has on the staff that they have, to push the grunt work to agentic and really relieve the folks that they have in smaller teams for real genius human work that requires a whole other set of skills that we're going to be good at.
And I'm smiling, and no one listening to the podcast can see that I'm smiling. But next week I am publishing an article on high-performing hybrid teams. So how do you get agents and humans to work together in an effective way? Because I think that's fundamental to any future that any organization has in terms of using these. But of course, another aspect is, how do agents talk to other agents as well?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, well, I've got agents, you've got agents. Have you begun to think yet about how you connect and interact with other agent capabilities in those same businesses that you're working with yet?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are so many little and big and small, however you characterize it, important agent to agent opportunities. That this is why living in this era is exciting. I've been working for 30 years as a technologist all my life, right? I have lived through all of the technology eras minus the personal computing, and I wasn't, obviously, I was a child, right? So I don't know the power of that. But now when you think about the internet, when you think about cloud, when you think about mobile, when you think about the data, like, this is one hell of an era. It is changing how we work, how we think, and how we connect. And this is something that the internet gave us connectivity just, pen pals in Thailand. And instead of writing a letter, I can send them now a message. Terrific, right? But now we're talking about even the way that we connect with each other as people and our and a brand new, category connecting, which is agents, and that we get to influence how they should connect to the benefit of humanity. I mean, it is incredible to be thinking about all the stuff that BrightAgent is going to do internally and handing it off to another agent that may be customer facing, or another agent that may be reporting, right? Maybe federal reporting to the IRS or to any regulatory authority. Can we run that more autonomously, agent to agent? There are so many things. Is there a day where maybe earnings calls are run by agents and reportings? I don't know, but the art of the possible is just much more exciting than any other era.
Do you know, I once wrote an article and published a blog, and I had a piece of feedback from one of the people who read the blog that said, Rob, if that's how the future's going to be, I don't want any part of it. And I'm sure that there are some people who may be listening to this conversation with a degree of that feeling. But if we were to finish on painting a vision of kind of 2, 3, 4 years out, maybe. So we've all matured a little in the context of the implementations of agents and multi-agents and inter-agent operability between the different things that we're all doing. How
Yeah.
would you describe that future for somebody who's listening on this call, a little, not necessarily in horror, but certainly a little nervous about the impact for them? What would be your advice to them in the benefit that they might get in 2 to 3 years out?
I'll go to two things. Number one, don't do what we do, which is underestimate the opportunity of your own growth, and overestimate the risks of what's going to happen to you. We just don't do a good enough job of reflecting on where can we grow. Answer that question first. In November of last year, I attended an event at Insight Partners. It's called Scale Up AI. They always do it every fall. And the chief technology officer of Mayo Clinic, who's a physician himself, spoke about how had at that point, and probably may still be getting, a lot of backlash from Mayo Clinic physicians who are upset with the level of kind of frontier and Mayo Clinic's adoption of AI tools. And he talked about how in every single sit down roundtable that he has with physicians to listen to their concerns, he finds himself saying the same thing. A physician with AI is going to be that's the real risk, if you want to say there's a risk, and displace a physician without AI, because that physician with AI allowed himself or herself to grow. And so what I will say to anyone who's so afraid of what will it do for me, it will not do anything if you don't actively participate with it, right? It's not going to put you out of the job itself. It's yourself putting yourself out of a job, because it is a tool for you to apply yourself differently. It's a tool for you to be more competitive. It's a tool for you to grow. And there's many tools, right? I always tell my staff, who you're obviously seeing out there all working, before you embrace a task, we're in an era where you should think about how you're going to do a task. Is this the most efficient way for me to do the same task in this job that I have? And what is the most efficient way? Because when we think that way, then it's going to be, you know what, that to answer that very first question in the task, maybe I should be going to Claude. Like, ask, are we starting at a different point to try to get the gained efficiencies from these tools, and then grow yourself to understand that these tools are valuable, how to use them, how to apply them in your work. And I think all companies are going to be growing into a culture where sharing the fact that you did this in collaboration with AI workforce or a chat age, it is not going to be looked at as, okay, then now Suzanne's worthless. And she's announcing that. The fear of even saying, I use the tools, this is where we were in 24 into 25. I think that won't exist anymore. Leaders are celebrating the fact that you can have these tools and you're still valuable, but just show us what you can do with the tools. You won't be, laid off because you did that. Cultures are changing. Yeah.
Somebody said to me the other day, it was great to be able to have a conversation where we talk the same language. And I think I'd say the same in this conversation. It's great to be talking the same language, solving some
Absolutely.
of the same problems, always with kind of different spaces, different perspectives. But that's the beauty of conversations like this, to kind of learn and share and understand what others are doing. So, Suzanne,
Yeah.
thank you for joining the podcast, and thank you for telling your story.
Thanks so much. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to share our mission, our excitement, and I think the future is incredible. It's a good time to be alive.